more wonderful that I can think of than our next guest. You love her as Peggy Carter. Please help me give a big Toronto welcome to Hayley Atwell. Hello? Oh, it's not... Uh-oh. Here. Hello. Oh, hi. Hi, everyone. Wow. Yeah, do you want to share? Okay. Welcome back to Fan Expo. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to get to audience questions super quick, actually, and there's a microphone right in this aisle. So if you want to go ahead and line up here right in the center, we won't get to it. And I think we have some Hayley Carter fans in the room. Am I right? I'm a big fan too, and I think we're all pretty bummed that it's over, but I wanted to hear from you. How do you feel about the show's conclusion?
Well, I'm not entirely convinced it is over, to be honest. Not that I have any secrets or more information, but it just feels with the amazing reception that it got from the fans and the fact that the Marvel team, and myself included, love playing her, that it's not kind of a lack of popularity, but just more of a kind of a logistics situation with the network. I don't know, something I don't really understand. But I think it's got every chance of finding a home somewhere else, whether that's on like a Netflix channel or something like that. And I'd be more than happy to bring her back.
We know Peggy lives for a long time.
Well, this is it. I was like, this is great because this surely makes me employed for a long time. And then I was going, oh, Peggy definitely would have been a hippie in the 60s. She would have had, you know, the big hair and shoulder pads in the 80s. And I would love to have seen her like style evolution in that time. So I'm sure there's plenty of stories we can give her.
Be like the fight for women's rights movie.
Yeah, and the civil rights movement. I mean, she's a humanitarian and she's an advocate for kind of equality of all people. So she would, I think, jump at the chance to be involved in any social issues that were happening of each time, each decade.
We would go see it, right? We would go see it. And there's a silver lining to everything because on October 3rd you have a new show on ABC called Conviction. Can you tell us about the show?
It's very different. She's a former first daughter, and she's American, and it's set now. So I get to wear jeans. It's amazing. And she's troubled in a really fascinating way. She's someone that I like to look at from afar and go, wow, that's amazing, but wouldn't really want to be in the same room as her because she's quite scary. But she's great fun to play. She's kind of the person that she says everything we wish we kind of had the confidence to say. Doesn't really have a filter. She says everything that comes into her mind, which is not always a nice thought. And she doesn't care. And I kind of like her audacity. But it's a legal procedural, so it follows a case a week that she has to solve. But at the same time, she's trying not to ruin every aspect of her life. She's a bit of a sabotager, but she's great fun.
It's great that you get to play these really complex female characters, which you don't see a lot on TV.
Yeah, and because I'm so simple, that it's amazing. I guess, I don't know. From the films I like to watch, and the shows I like to watch, and the theatre I like to see, and the books I like to read, they are all complicated, because if any art form is done well, it starts to address the fact that humans are multifaceted and far more interesting than sometimes the media gives us all credit for. So that's the thing that inspires me, and that's the kind of work I want to do, that even if we have someone, you know, like Peggy, who looks great, but there's a lot more going on, and that to me, it feels so much more stimulating and a lot more kind of a fairer representation of the fact that human beings are complicated and fallible and brilliant and annoying and hypocritical and contradictory and all these amazing things, and I think it's great to celebrate all of those.
And I agree, yeah. Yeah! And you shot some of the show in Toronto, is that right?
I'm currently shooting now, in fact. I finished work at 1 a.m. this morning. We work like 15, 16-hour days. Normally, the other weekends that we've shot here, I've finished at 6 in the morning, which is nuts. But we keep our energy up by playing bananagrams in between takes. And that's really fun.
You are a hero for being here today.
Such a nerdy gamer, I love it. And then we do things like, when we get bored of just standard bananagrams, we do like a theme. So everything has to be every word we create has to be related to a theme. So for example, we were like, let's go Hollywood. So the words were like kale, weep, lies, pain, broken dreams. We're all joking, of course, kind of. Or then we do it phonetically, but we have to choose an accent and spell out words phonetically, which is fun. So you can tell we're having lots of fun.
Amazing. Why don't we go to the audience? Yeah, hi.
I used to work in a board game cafe, so that's a great shout out on Bananagrams. I first loved you in Pillars of the Earth, and I love that you work in so many different eras in movie and film, or TV and film. Do you have a favorite era to act in?
I don't mind the era. It depends on how good the story feels to me. And I think good stories kind of transcend the era that they're set in, if they deal with universal human themes. So I love it, like the pillars, the costumes, and that medieval, kind of mystical, magical world was great to inhabit visually. And the same thing with Peggy being in the 40s, just that different kind of look, but such a kind of iconic kind of silhouette of the time. And then now modern day getting to wear these like Alexander McQueen cool cut, jackets and sexy bags and Louboutin heels, and all of that is great, but ultimately the only thing that's going to keep my interest is if the story's compelling and the people are compelling and the characters are interesting to watch. So yeah, I think it kind of answers the question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi there. First I want to say welcome back to Fan Expo. We missed you.
Thank you. Are you wearing a scuba suit? I can't really see. Oh no, I can see your legs. You're not.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Big trench coat.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Given the fact that Peggy Carter was cancelled and it kind of ended off on a cliffhanger, would you be interested in playing Peggy Carter again in, let's say, a spin-off movie?
Yes. I'd love to. Well, the writers towards the end of the second season had plans for what season 3 would be, or could be. It was really exciting and kind of surprising to me. And this is a team of people, we really love each other, and we really just want to be able to work together again in whatever medium it is, whether it's a TV or a film spin-off or an appearance in something. So yeah, we'll jump at the chance. In fact, it was Jarvis's birthday last week. So I sent him 50 balloons, but with all printed with faces of all the team of writers and producers who worked on from the show, all pulling really ugly faces though. And I've got it on my phone, I can't really show you, but he filmed himself opening them, and they all came out of the boxes and floated at the ceilings, these ugly faces looking down at him. And then he was like, "You're a bit deflated." And I'm like, that's the story of my life. And it was just me kind of like trying to make its way down to the floor. But yes, the answer is yes, I'd love to be a part of her again.
Well, here's keeping our fingers crossed for season 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there was more Peggy Carter, I want more musical episodes.
Yes, me too.
How was that to shoot?
Well, it was great because up until it was actually happening, we all thought it was a prank. We thought the writers were like, because they prank us all the time. The writers' room is a booby trap. You can't go in there without some form of humiliation happening. And so they said, oh, you're all going to be singing and dancing, and Virgil Kai would play Susan. was like, yeah, whatever, guys. And I'm not going to fall for that one. And there he was, back in his little sweater vest, dancing away. And we loved it. It was a really happy environment on set because it was a different kind of feel to what we'd been filming before. And we just had this big studio and the choreographer and these other great dancers. And it just, I think, added to the fun of what Agent Carter's about. There's a tongue-in-cheek element. I think Marvel does incredibly well in all their films and projects, which is one of the reasons why we love them so much.
Thanks.
Hey, Hayley. So you mentioned in high school, or I guess whatever they call it in England, that you had some...
Secondary school.
Secondary school.
Yeah.
And you had to deal with some girls who weren't that nice to you, but you've overcome that, and you've become confident, and you've...
Look at me now.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any advice for everyone in secondary school right now?
Embrace your weird, I think. There's a great thing that I read recently about learning to love yourself is the greatest kind of silent revolution. And I do feel very strongly, and it's hard to practice, you know, because we are creatures, we are social creatures, and so we're very reactive to the environment we're in and people's responses to us. That's how we feel, that we understand what our own identity is in the world. And when you're surrounded by people that you feel don't understand you or outwardly reject you, it can be incredibly disheartening. But the one thing I'm trying to learn at the moment is that you are the only person that will be with you until the day the moment that you die. So it's a great thing to try and learn how to become your best friend. And in doing that, it means that you'll never ultimately be alone because you know how to look after yourself. And that's kind of transcendent because it means that you kind of become untouchable from people who you feel are not really kind of getting you, understanding you, or even really, care. And I find that that's kind of such a wonderful thing about the work that I do. Is that I get to inhabit lots of different people, and it gives me much more of an open mind into understanding that human beings are so interesting and weird, and so much weirder than we realise. And like, I find myself weird all the time, and it makes me laugh now, and it used to really scare me that I felt different, or I felt awkward, or I didn't say the right thing, or I wasn't this or wasn't that. But now I kind of think, well, that's where my humour lies, and that's also where my compassion on people's differences lies, so it's an important thing to embrace it.
Thanks so much, Hayley.
I was wondering what aspect of filming Agent Carter you would miss the most, whether it would actually be part of the acting or the behind-the-scenes shenanigans.
Well, I kind of felt like the actual acting got in the way of the shenanigans. I feel like that's kind of why we're there, really. The most important aspect of work was just pranking each other. But that whole project taught me how to bring an element of fun onto a set and then still be able to do the work, because that's the balance. Ultimately, the most important thing, and the reason why we're all there, is because we want to get the great thing that happens between the word action and the word cut. But I often feel from working on Agent Carter that in between being on camera, that sense of camaraderie that's built up, that level of trust and companionship and fun actually can create a great atmosphere to work in and make the work better, because everyone's just not feeling that they're on a grind, that they're actually doing something genuinely creative. And I miss them. I have a group chat with all the key writers and producers and the actors, and it often involves trying to psychologically destroy Jarvis by just being really mean to him, but he loves it. He loves the attention, so we just keep going. And but I say that in jest. It's a really kind of rare thing to have that, and it's something that I'll take into every project now, which I am trying to do with Banana Backgrounds currently in this next job.
You're working with another genre favorite favorite conviction right now, Sean Ashmore, a local as well. How's that been going?
He's good. I'm much better at bananagrams than him, just saying.
Sucker.
You know, he's great. He's fantastic. He's brilliant to work with. He's quite, we had to play a game on set yesterday called How You Figure Out What Your Stripper Name Is. And it was the colour of the pants that you're wearing and the last thing that you ate. So he was Black Waffle, which is, so we now call him Black Waffle. Yeah, that's the kind of thing we get up to.
It's like a rotten waffle. Just something wrong there. It's no good.
No one wants to see that.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Hayley. My question is, whether it be in the movies or in the show, were there any quirks or improvised lines that you brought to the character that weren't from the writing team or the creative team?
In Agent Carter?
Or the movies, either one.
Yeah, well, the hand on the boob is obviously wasn't scripted. That's like, this is my one chance. And I didn't plan it either, and that was also the first time I'd seen Chris come out of this pod. And I needed to make sure it was real. So I just went in, the old hand grab. And then they liked it, so they made me keep doing it again and again.
Oh no.
Yeah, Chris was kind of indifferent. I think he's really used to it. So that, and then I think what was happening by the time we started season 2 is that the writers saw, especially in between takes, how James, who plays Jarvis, how we just naturally react to each other, and wrote more of that for us. So as they went on and got to know each of the characters, they started to form the scenes and the dialogue based on how we worked together. And James would often come in and pitch lines, and I can't remember the top of my head, but it did feel like a collaboration by the end of it, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hi.
Hi. So I really loved Agent Carter, and I was really ecstatic when I heard that it was going to be a TV show, and like best Tuesday night ever. But yeah, have you ever pitched any storylines for the show, or like if you could, would you pitch as like an arc, or even as like a filler episode?
Yeah. Yes. I would definitely like to have seen Angie come back. I'd quite like to. More music? I don't know. I really would like to see kind of how she would tackle home life and like having kids, or deciding not to. The fact with Peggy is that she's so much defined by her work that I think there must be some kind of cost to that when she comes home, and she is ultimately alone. And so when you take away her sense of identity in the workplace, I'd like to kind of explore a little bit about who is she when there are no bad guys to fight. Does she have her own demons? And I'd like to have, I don't know, maybe get some cameos. I want Tim Curry to do a cameo. I love him so much. I really love him.
Season 3. It'll happen.
Season 3. And I want him to be an evil villain. Or my dad.
In the music. Perfect.
Or just come and hang out. Just play bananagrams. I don't mind.
Calm up. Hi, thank you so much.
Hi Hayley, I study historical costume and was wondering what would be your favorite piece from Agent Carter's wardrobe?
Well, not visually, because I get this doesn't really offer much for the eye, but brown jumpsuit that she was in the sewer in. Just meant I could lunge, I could climb trees. It was a nightmare to go to the loo in, but I just like the comfort of it. Like the thing that I found, I'm kind of naturally a tomboy, and I don't really spend much time thinking about clothes apart from the costumes I wear at work. I just like to be able to move. I get quite restless if I can't move, and I felt that the costumes are so beautiful, and what they really do to the character of Peggy is they create her posture changes, her sense of her kind of, the way that she holds herself is to do with what the outfits are saying and how they represent her as a person and how considered and put together she is and how much of her time she was. So I was happy to see the back of that gold dress. That was, oh God, that was, I mean, but the thing is, if I slouched in it, it was so kind of hard and big that it kind of kept me standing. So I would just kind of sometimes like just drop to my knees, but I was still standing because the dress was holding me up because it was so big. It was like really stiff material. But Gigi Melton, who designed everything and had everything tailor-made for me, was just brilliant because she kept within the time, but she also made it so that I felt comfortable and that it worked with my body type and also allowed me to do the action that I needed. So she did a great job.
Thank you.
Did you get to take home any of the outfits or props?
Yeah, at the end of season 2, she came in, she's like, you have all of these, but don't tell anyone. And I have quite a bit in my wardrobe.
Nice.
But it would be really weird. Can you imagine, like, on my day off, bumping into me in the street, and I'm dressed as Peggy, and I'm like, hi, I really miss her.
I heard you also have a pamphlet from your own funeral, which is kind of weird.
I do. But I got it because Chris sent me a text of the day he was filming the funeral. And he was talking about how hot Peggy looked as an old lady. And she was like a picture of her by the coffin, which was really dark and weird. And then I went to see them all in Atlanta, and I made sure I got the little pamphlet. It was good turnout, I thought.
She was pretty popular.
Yeah, so it's a lot of Latin inside it that I didn't understand, but I'm sure it's all very complimentary.
She was fancy.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Hey, sorry. Hey.
Hi.
Hey, nice to see you. My name's Malcolm. And my question for you is if you got a chance to see Civil War, there's a bunch of different characters in that movie that I would have really loved Agent Carter to meet. Spider-Man in particular. How do you think Agent Carter would relate to Spider-Man? Do you think she would respect him like she did with Captain America, or think that being a hero is not for a kid?
Oh no, I think she'd really like him. I think she'd feel very jealous of all his bendy moves at the start. No, I think that, I think Peggy would be kind of fascinated by this weird creature. And kind of amazed and in awe of it all, really. I think she's, she knows what she stands for, so all that she kind of looks for is that kind of quality within people, despite it doesn't matter the fact that they look very different. But I think they'd get on. I mean, I don't know if they get on though. Can you imagine them having like a cup of coffee together?
Definitely.
Can you? Can you imagine that? I think she'd be jealous of that kind of thing. I think she'd be trying to kind of do that with them.
That scene he had with Captain America, though, I kind of saw as if he was talking to maybe his successor, someone who could maybe take his place as the Avengers someday. So, I mean, I found that scene very interesting between those two, because it was like he was talking to a reflection of himself, because he said, "Where are you from, kid?" And he said, "Queens," and then he replies, "Brooklyn."
I think Peggy would have really liked to have met Captain Marvel as well.
Oh,
Yeah. Any more ladies? Thanks.
Oh, hi, lady.
Hi.
My question to you is, what do you like most about working with Chris Evans in Captain America's First Adventure?
His running charades skills. We used to just play, I mean, you get like, I'm a child, I'm clearly a 12-year-old child who never grew up, but he's great fun. Like if you go out for a night with Chris, you're going to have an absolutely brilliant time, and he makes sure that everyone does, and so he's great at hosting, and he's a wonderful guy, and I'm very lucky to consider him a friend. So it was just kind of being able to hang out with him, really. And it was a very different time back then, because it was a big deal for him in his career. And it was a new world for me as well. And that was, 8 years ago that we filmed that? And to see how that, so he knew it would change his life hugely, and it has. And I think he was nervous about that, and I was nervous too, coming onto such a big job. But to see each other at the beginning of what this journey has been, and to be able to maintain that friendship and kind of be here now and look back at it and go, wow, look where we are now. Still being idiots playing running charades, but it's, you know, that's really special. You know, he's a really sweet man.
Thank you.
Two very important follow-up questions to that.
Yes.
Is he good at charades, and are you better at charades?
I hate to admit it, but I think we're pretty even.
Amazing.
Yeah, which is why I wouldn't want to be someone watching us, because I would find myself irritating with how adamant I am that I'm going to win. So, you know, but he's and he can run really fast, and you know, he's very clever. It's really annoying. Yeah, so I think he's a good match for me.
Hi Hayley, thanks for being here. I love you. My friend unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, but she wanted me to ask you, if Peggy was still alive in the 21st century, what would she be like, and how would Steve react to her?
She'd definitely have squad goals. Should I have all the coolest women? Should Beyonce, you know, Florence and the Machine. She's really into music, apparently. Yeah, I think she would. I think she might find Steve quite earnest and kind of shake him up a bit, maybe, and just remind him of where he comes from, the 1940s. But I hope that Peggy's the kind of person who, she's very determined and she'll adapt to the environment she finds herself in. And therefore she would take on modern life quite well. I don't think she'd be on social media. I don't think she'd have time for it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now I just want season 3 to be Peggy Carter and Beyonce.
Me too! Can we make that happen?
Hi Hayley, I'm a huge fan of you, and my question is, what qualities and traits of Peggy Carter are you most drawn to?
I think she's very resilient, and I don't think she really doubts her ability, her skills at work, despite the fact that I'm sure she is in her environment inundated with reminders that she's not enough and she's not a man, therefore she's less. But that's just not something that's in her DNA to even kind of pay attention to. You know, she wouldn't even imagine that. And I kind of admire her, kind of her tenacity and her ability to just get on. You know, she's like keep calm, carry on mentality of just following what she knows, what the task is at hand. But I also think that, you know, her empathy, because all of this work ultimately comes from a place of wanting to contribute and to be of service and do right and be on the right side. And that kind of tirelessness to keep on fighting the bad guys. That's where it comes from, you know, and her kind of her belief in humanity and that we have the potential to be good.
Thank you.
I kind of want to ask that same question about Elise, your character on Conviction, because I know she's a bit more of a complicated character, but or morally complicated, I suppose. What qualities do you like about her?
She's rigorously honest, to a fault, but that's also admirable in a way. I think she doesn't have that kind of, I've got to think before I speak, and I think that's really cool. She also has this thing which you'll notice from the pilot, which is she often kind of walks in and throws her bag around. She throws the bag, takes it, and she just gets on with it, and then she seems to be very distracted and not paying attention and not really bothered about what's going on, and she'll just kind of yes to this, blah 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 blah, and then kind of disappear again. And then in the last moment she'll turn around and she will say certain things that makes you realise, oh my goodness, she was really paying attention. She knows what that person there is kind of what their agenda is based on a tiny detail on their jacket, or the fact that they have a stain on their shirt means that they probably, you know, their washing machine's broken down or something. She has like something much sexier than that. But her ability to pick up detail and observe everything and to take in information and then seemingly not be doing that at all, I think is kind of like a bit of a superpower. And she's just remarkably observant, and she will kind of notice the way someone says something about a job, and she'll know that they're actually revealing something about themselves and their personal life, which then she'll comment on. She's very astute.
Very Sherlockian.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Thanks. Hi.
Hello. My question is, Chris Evans, before he was Captain America, he was in Fantastic Four. And if there was any other superhero that you could play, be it Marvel, DC, anything, who would it be?
Beyonce. Superhero. I think Meryl Streep's a superhero. Can I play her? Can I just have her life? Can I just be her for a bit? I'd like to live in that world. I like the thing that, as amazing as superheroes are, what I have appreciated about Peggy in that world of superheroes is she doesn't actually have any superpowers. And that's interesting to me, because I go, well, I can relate to the fact that she's a human being. And so what are her strengths and her powers within the realm that is obtainable for me as a human being, you know? And that's kind of what I look for in stories as well. Superheroes are wonderful, but they also represent things that we can't see, qualities of, you know, of heroism, which I think exist everywhere, and they exist, you know, underneath capes, and they don't involve being able to fly. They involve much more human qualities. So I'm not so much bothered about being able to, you know, dart around the planet in 10 minutes, and more of just being able to connect with other humans.
Thank you.
Hi. So one of the things I love the most about Agent Carter, the TV show, is how much you and the other actors and the writers did to build the relationships between Peggy and characters who weren't always on screen a ton, but those relationships felt so real. Our cat's name is Angie Martinelli. So I'm just wondering if there are ideas that you had about some of those relationships with like Angie or Howard or any of the other characters that maybe we didn't see on screen but were informing those relationships.
Yeah, well, we talked about the fact that anyone who would come in, even for a scene or one or two scenes or, you know, guest appearances that weren't reoccurring or weren't in the kind of the core main characters, that we should create an environment for them where they could feel fully formed, so they could come in and feel less self-conscious about getting their lines right and standing in the right place, but knowing that they played a pivotal role in the success of the show. And that kind of involved just being able to just welcome them in and create an environment where they could do their best work because they felt relaxed and they felt validated and they felt important. And I think that comes across. Angie, you know, Lindsay, who plays Angie, was, you know, she's so professional and so on it and warm. And we talked about the fact that they're very, very different and they shouldn't in some ways have anything in common, and therefore what basis of friendship is there? But remarkably, you know, Peggy needs Angie, because Angie is, she's not afraid of friendship, she's not afraid of emotional connection. And she's funny and she's light-hearted and she sees the world in a different way that I think makes Peggy feel quite safe. And I love that. I love seeing female friendships on screen and ones that don't seem to have, you know, are not rooted in any kind of tension of competition or jealousy or the male interest being the centre of the friendship. So we try to do that with Angie. And then, you know, Dominic Cooper, who plays Howard, I've known for a long time. So with that, we just felt that despite the fact that he's a womanizer and does things that Peggy finds repugnant, they're almost kind of like family. and she doesn't have to agree with everything he says or does in order to really truly love him. And I think when it comes to it, they both have a deep affection for each other. And I think he probably looks at her and goes, I respect you, yet you're wearing a skirt. That's weird. And it's kind of, that's a new thing for him, perhaps. I don't know, I do feel that she's seen more than just her gender when she was with Howard, and that they do need each other. So yeah.
Thank you. You had really great women as antagonists on Agent Carter too. We had Dottie in the first season, and then I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about playing against Whitney in the second season. She was amazing.
Win Everett, genius, Win Everett. She's so funny. We've got a blooper reel, and I piss myself laughing every time I watch it because Win commits, and she's crazy. And it's so, she'll be like, God, I thought that hurt more. You're mental. So funny. And quirky, and quite like, reminds me of that British eccentricity actually. And I thought also, you know, that she represented, I think, that kind of the dark side of Hollywood being kind of that obsession with ambition, you know, and kind of doing anything to achieve what you want in life, and despite the fact that you're clearly evil, or you know, doing bad things to get there. And I think. And also at the same time, she's really clever. You know, she's a scientist, a bit like Hedy Lamarr. That's who it's initially based on, although I'm sure she wasn't as evil as Whitney. Yeah, so that's great. And again, with Bridget Regan playing Dottie, you know, these women are coming in as fully formed actresses who have a lot to say, and they're all great fun. And it was just kind of providing the space for them to really be able to enjoy themselves and go for it.
Hi. I wanted to ask, most of the people that I know who like Marvel movies and TV shows are at least relatively young, and I wanted to know if you had spoken with anyone or heard from fans who are closer to Peggy Day, who lived through World War II, and to know about their reactions to it. And then entirely separately, I've been requested to ask you what your favorite dinosaur is.
Good. The vegetarians, they're cute. What are they, with long legs? That's my favourite dinosaur, whatever that's called.
Brontosaurus.
There we go, love him. I have met a few people at conventions who've told me that their grandmothers have watched it, or that their grandmothers were spies in the 40s, and I did some work, there's some books that I found online about kind of the underworld of female spies in the Second World War, and how kind of relatively little is known about them compared to the extraordinary things that they did, and how active women were, yet they're not talked about as much because they weren't necessarily on the front line or centre stage of what was going on, but they were having a huge impact. And you know, it's not a new thing. You're like, wow, it was, you know, it's such an amazing time because women are like so amazing now. I'm like, well, we always were. What are you talking about? It's just we don't see them on the centre. Maybe we haven't seen them on the centre stage as much as we are now, and hopefully that will continue and evolve. But you know, I look at my own grandmother, who's such a kind of a beacon of strength and stoicism and elegance, and there's something, you know, she was from Ireland and then came over to live in Manchester and worked in many jobs, different kind of factory jobs and up north, and she would sleep in her curlers and she would look immaculate just to go to the corner shop to get a pint of milk. And even just that sense of preservation and grace and dignity. No, and it wasn't that she was doing a glamorous job or had to be in a place where she was being looked at all the time, but it was just for herself, which I think is really wonderful. So much of the kind of generation of that time, the attention to detail of the appearance, men as well, you know, how extraordinary men looked going to work every day, no matter what it was that they did. You know, a lot of them were in London, especially the bowler hats and the sticks, or the waistcoats, and I think that was such an elegant time. So yeah, my grandmother likes that aspect of it.
Thank you.
We have time for 2 more questions before we go out.
Hi Hayley, I just want to say you're a beautiful human, like inside and out, you're amazing, I love you. My question for you is, there's a lot of memorable lines in Agent Carter, my personal favorite being, I know my value, anybody else's opinion doesn't really matter. Do you have a favorite that's not well known? Or known?
Oh God, yeah. I wish, oh man, that's a good... Yes, actually, and it's not her line. And it's a line that we could not get through the read-through because it makes us laugh so much, because it was so random. And I bet you not a lot of people will even remember it, because it was like a passing comment. But you know, she's in the first season, she's living in the women's residential home kind of thing. And there are girls in front of her stealing food, and there's this one character who talks about that her mum had knitted her a chicken pocket. And it came from S.H.I.E.L.D, one of our showrunners, and we read it in the read-through and we just lost it. We couldn't, so especially James, Darcy and I were just like, that feels so weird. But that's amazing. And we're like, I want a chicken pocket. We should all have chicken pockets. And where can we get one? And that became kind of just a great kind of running gag. And then I found a picture of a chicken in a pocket. So we sent that, and in fact James Darcy has just written and directed a short film that he's going to take to festivals. It's called Chicken Egg, and it features a chicken pocket. So obviously this is like an ongoing love, and it's really like, of all the things you're like, know your value, I'm like, chicken pocket, that's the funny one. Yeah, that's what I'll take with me.
Thank you so much.
Hi. I was wondering, if Agent Carter were to continue, do you think Daniel Souza would be the one that Peggy ends up with? And do you think Michael Carter is alive?
Ooh. Wow. It's interesting because they had to, when I was doing The Winter Soldier, they had, by Peggy's bedside, they had pictures of her with the kids, and I think, and a guy. And when they were cutting it together, Louis Esposito was like, we've got to fuzz out the face of her husband because we don't know who it is yet, which is so lucky. We did that. Otherwise, whoever that extra was who took that picture would now have a career. Had to be my husband. So that hasn't happened. So it could be Sousa, because she talks about having that Captain America saved her husband before. Obviously, they knew that was they were going to get married later on. So it could easily be Sousa. Maybe he saved his life, and that was the time when he had his injury. And I would absolutely love to have a family with Ember Jokai. So I'd be very happy about that, because I think they're a good match. The other thing, Michael. That was what we were going to explore in season 3. And I don't want to say anything more than that in case we do, in hope that we will do. So I'll leave you with that big mystery.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we all hope for that too. Conviction premieres October 3rd on ABC. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I think I've said enough. Sick of my own voice. So thanks for indulging me, guys. It's really lovely to be here. Have a great weekend.
Give her a big round of applause.